Sehenswürdigkeiten in einer Stadt. So we're looking at points of interest, basically sightseeing within a city. I'm going to walk you through some vocabulary that may help you and then show you some examples. So we have die Oper. Die Oper is opera and probably one of the most famous ones in a German-speaking country. And I'll give you examples from Deutschsprachige Länder, so German-speaking countries, is the Vienna Opera House. So Wien, die Oper, der Brunnen, fountain. This is in Berlin, and it's at Alexanderplatz. Famous fountain. You can see the TV tower in the background, kind of on the other side of Alexanderplatz. Die Brücke. Some cities have a point of interest in the bridge. So here's a famous bridge in Heidelberg. Let me get rid of the arrow, and you can see the castle in the background. So the Schloss in Heidelberg. This is a very famous, beautiful footbridge in Heidelberg. And then in particular, cities on water, on the coast, you have harbors. So der Hafen. So Hamburg is a coastal city, the beautiful harbors in Hamburg. Here we have Denkmal and Gedenkstätte. So both of these have the German verb denken, which means to think. A Denkmal is a monument. A Gedenkstätte is a memorial. So here, the Denkmal is in Leipzig. This is the monument for soldiers. And then Gedenkstätte, so memorial, like Dachau, at the Dachau labor camp or concentration camp, is a memorial. So it's not, and here, if you're familiar, here is where it would say like Arbeit macht frei. So Gedenkstätte and Denkmal, so dealing with the verb denken. Then we have the difference between Schloss and Burg. Schloss is a castle, Burg is a fortress. And so you can kind of tell the difference because this is sort of that fortified wall. So this would be the Burg and this would be the Schloss. So this is Schloss Neuschwanstein in Schwangau. So Schwan, swans. Hechingen is the Burg. And of course, within that fortress, there's, sort of that palace castle idea, but just a little different. Das Gebäude, der Wolkenkratzer, die Kirche, der Dom. So let's first go to the difference between these two. Building versus a Wolkenkratzer. Think about this word, Wolken, or Wolke. Das Wetter ist, das Wetter ist kühl, es ist wolkig or befolkt, meaning it's cloudy, right? So the German word cloud is in it. So we would call that a skyscraper. So the best examples would be here in Frankfurt, a little more industrialized city in Germany. So skyscrapers versus just, the word for building. This is in Vienna. This is from the architect Hundertwasser. He has very interesting buildings. I think they're really cool. Something you may want to consider checking out. So the difference between a building and skyscraper. And then we have the difference between a church and a cathedral. So this is a very kind of non-traditional church. This is in the middle of the inner city of Munich, Stadtmitte, not far from Marienplatz. In the background, you can see the Frauenkirche or the Dome or cathedral in Munich. But right here, this is the Jesuitenkirche, the Jesuit church, where Ludwig II is buried, who actually was the builder and lived in Neuschwanstein from the previous slide. And then, as I said, Dom being a cathedral. Here's the one in Munich. Here's the one in Cologne, in Köln. The dome is cathedral, coming from the word seat, and this is the seat of the bishop. So in a Catholic kind of hierarchy, this is where the bishop is. So it's kind of the main church of the diocese. So this is the one in Munich. This is the one in Cologne. Continuing on buildings of faith, we have Die Kapelle, which is a chapel. So here's a chapel in Vienna. And then we have a basilica. Here's one in Dusseldorf. So a basilica also receives a special blessing. So there's something special about it besides just being a church, but it's not the seat of the diocese or where the bishop is, so it's not a cathedral. So here's one in Dusseldorf. So in a Christian context. And then we have a mosque, especially if you're thinking about in Berlin, in the Kreuzberg district of Berlin, a number of immigrant populations from Turkey, probably certainly refugees. So we have mosques now in Germany, as well as Buddhist temples. This is very modern. Not as many, but there's a few. You kind of have that idea with these sweeping awnings, kind of the idea of that, of sort of the entrance gates for more traditional temples in Asia. And we still have, we'll get to the last one of religion, which is the synagogue. And here is one in Essen. Most are certainly thinking about the history of Germany, new construction, post-World War II, since many were destroyed. And then we have palace. So here's the palace in Vienna, a little different than the castle. Here is a museum in Munich, Das Museum. Here's the Theater in der Stadtmitte in Stuttgart. And this is the Englischer Garten in Munich, which is a big giant park, kind of when you think about like Central Park in New York. But this park, don't quote me on this, it might be bigger. It's a beautiful, beautiful park in Munich. Lots of green space. So those are just some of the Sehenswürdigkeiten in einer Stadt, some different points of interest that you may see within a city, and maybe you can come up with some of your own ideas. Ja, danke. Tschüss.